All set.
Alright, so right now we're with the CoMArtists, Michelle and Hoda. You guys want to talk about yourselves a little bit or introduce yourselves?
To the camera.
Wait, are they seeing us right now?
No.
Oh, we're gonna edit it.
It's just a vid. It's like no, but like, is it gonna be a video or record like a?
It's a video.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Hi. Very cool. Go ahead.
Wait, yeah, so should I look at the camera? Just look at you? Does it matter? We're fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or look at me. Look at me.
Whatever you're most comfortable with.
It's me.
Yes, my name is Michelle Sheena, and I graduated in 2016 from Tulane University with a BS in neuroscience and double minor in studio art and Spanish. And I worked in Argentina for a few months after I graduated at a lab that combined neuroscience, physics, and art. And then I moved to Baltimore for a year, where I also got to combine neuroscience and art, working on a neuroarchitecture project. And now I'm here, trying to keep those connections alive.
You could talk about your thing.
Yeah, we'd love to know
Okay.
everything. That sounds really interesting.
My name is Hoda. I graduated from the University of Chicago in 2016, same as Michelle, and I did biology there, and also visual arts. But specifically, I worked in like sculpture, so I did a lot of like woodwork and metalwork. And at that time, it wasn't really like, I never really like married my passions. A lot of people ask me if I want to, and I think the answer is no, because I like having them separate. But I know a lot of people doing really interesting work in both art and science, art and medicine. But so I moved to Boston, Massachusetts for 2 years after undergrad, and I worked at Mass General. But on the side, so I was working in cancer research, clinical research, and it was like really heavy, and I felt like I needed my outlet again. So I started doing ceramics for a couple of years, and I've brought it back here. So I've started taking more ceramics classes and doing ceramics on my own after class, which is nice.
What was the reason that you stopped, like, between that? Like, for the 2 years, did you, like, completely go away from art for a little bit? Or?
Oh, I didn't go away.
No.
I just did ceramics there, because I was thinking about doing like a sculptural practice in like wood and metal, but it's harder when you don't have facility. You have to find like a makerspace, and those places are super expensive. A lot of them are like a little bit male dominated and competitive, and so I found that I just was like, let me just try ceramics, because it's a very like portable hobby, in that like any city you're going to be in, there's going to be a ceramics studio, and if you really want to, you can get up your own wheel when you're older and have money. But that's a little bit down the line. Hopefully I'll be able to do that. But yeah, so that's why I switched to ceramics, and I really, really enjoyed it. And you don't have to lug around big pieces or anything. It's just like pretty contained.
Just convenient.
And then like now all my like, Michelle can tell you, all my like plateware at home is like homemade, which is fun.
And they're beautiful.
So that's fun. But yeah, that's my little thing. You look a lot like a friend of mine from high school.
Really?
Yeah. But
I hope that's a good thing.
oh no, he's attractive. But okay, sorry.
No.
You like the same energy too.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
I also, as a slight side note, Hoda took me to a ceramics class here that we actually did, just like a drop-in session. It was very beginner-oriented because I had never really done it before. So it was really fun to kind of learn about that life, and it's also it's just a great activity.
Yeah, it's great.
I had a great time.
And a lot, like we got a couple other med school students who've never done before go, which was really fun, and we're sort of thinking, at least in the other studio, I'm going to Narware in Wilson, and they, we're thinking about doing like a med school class where we can just like have like Miles and I are talking about like getting a group of students to go, and then like sort of get exposed to that, which would be really cool.
So sign up. Next school class.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And this is just like a side note.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to get into, I don't know about ceramic making, but something with like pottery making. I just didn't know how to start, or that I would be judged because I don't know how to do anything.
Oh yeah.
Which is very scary. So I just know it's like not for me.
No, it's awesome. It's really good, and it's funny because for me, ceramics is really meditative. So, but the first class you ever take is going to be really frustrating because you're going to be like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. But like once you get the hang of it, like it's in one day, sort of like flips into from being really like stressful into being like a huge stress reliever.
That's
And there are tons of like intro classes. And like I took an intro class, 2 years ago, and now I'm just doing it for fun and don't need to take classes. I can just go on my own. But the learning curve is like intense, but it does like end at some point, and then it's good. Yeah, I think it's a good thing for everyone who's like sort of inclined, because anyone doing like sciences or like medicine, you're always using like this like. You're just like using your right brain or something all the time. I don't know if that's like real or not. Like the neuroscientists here can tell me. But there's this like it's like you're piece of exams. You have nothing to like produce. You don't produce anything. And that's like a nice thing where like with art and like Michelle did printmaking, like you have something to show for yourself and for your parents if they care.
Yeah.
that's really
Have you been doing printmaking recently?
Not here, which for the same reason that it's not a very portable media. But I do have all my old printmaking supplies. So I think I'm going to start trying to get back into it, because there's also this kind of Japanese printmaking where you don't need a press. You just use a very thin piece of paper on wood or even linoleum and then just like rub it like we used to do as kids. On
Oh,
like
that's cool.
tree bark or something, yeah. So I'm going to try to bring that back, but I'm glad that I've been just like artistically active also here. And there are a ton of printmaking studios, a ton of maker spaces. I know where all of them are. I need to make that jump.
Can you tell us more about that project you were talking about earlier, the neuroscience art?
Yes. So in Argentina, I worked for a lab at the Universidad de Febrero. And it was really cool because they partnered, there were so many great projects going on, but the one that I was specifically working on, I worked with musicians. And I learned how to use an eye tracking machine to see how expert musicians sight read. So yeah, we like never really finished it, but I looked at a lot of different musicians, and based on their background, their expertise, their confidence level even, what their reaction time and accuracies were as they sight read different musical pieces. And it's really cool because they actually turned a lot of these ideas into an art exhibit where they had one guy sight reading a piece of music, and using the eye tracking technology, they only illuminated what he was directly focusing on. And then another musician was playing those notes that the first musician could see. So it was very interesting.
Oh, like live?
Like live,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So it was really cool to see, based on what you're actively attending to, what you can perceive, and then how you can make that affect other people.
Right.
But there were so many great projects. They did that with a lot of art projects, and art, like paintings, sculptures, anything that has a lot of different dynamic forms.
It's really interesting because like I feel like with medicine, well, there's a lot of like new art, like with like VR art, for example, where like you can put on something and like adopt the personality, or like go into an environment that you would never go in. And there was like a exhibit I saw in Boston at MIT that was like a VR exhibit where you interacted with people who were soldiers or victims of like war and stuff like this, and like it like was supposed to like you're supposed to like see from their perspective or something. And I think for medicine it's something that could be really fruitful because there's so much biases and like disease and stigma against certain diseases where like art can like expose some of those things.
And I think that's how like film and literature have helped in the past, but it's cool that technology can start to take that to the next level.
Right.
You're not just reading about someone's perspective, but you're really
Living it. Exactly.
That kind of reminds me of, like recently there was, like, this is weird, but there was a filter on Snapchat which lets you go into a Smithsonian exhibit. It was like a VR experience.
Whoa.
So, like, you just click on that one or whatever it is, and then as you walk in whatever setting you're in, you're walking around the exhibit.
Oh wow.
And like almost everyone has Snapchat or some type of social media. Almost everyone. But it's like, it's very accessible to people.
Right.
So if you can incorporate something like that with medicine, and like you're saying, that is a form of art, it's something that a lot of people would either be interested in or just would want to experience.
Totally.
I love that so much.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Super cool. Do you guys want to talk more about the exhibit that you're planning? Sure.
Yes, so we've been talking to Dr. Michael Blackgate about hosting an exhibit in the faculty and alumni lounge at the medical school. So we're gonna have a reception with like a grand opening, maybe there will be food, maybe a raffle, these details are to be determined. If there are any generous donors out there listening,
Plug.
we can put a little plaque on your name, maybe make some art for you.
Yeah.
Work
that's
on
a great
commissions, it's great.
idea. That's a great idea.
But yeah, have a reception and then display a bunch of art pieces, whether it's 2D, 3D, maybe multimedia, during the reception, and then have everything on display for a couple of weeks afterwards in the Library of Health Sciences, just to make sure that everybody has access. If you can't go during the 2-hour time frame that we've allotted, you can still see everything, or take a nice break while you're studying and go look at something beautiful.
Yeah. We're hoping to get student artists involved, medical students, because we have gone to like a meeting from the like UI art club, and there are lots of people interested, and also so that's like painting, drawing, but also sculpture and video work. But there are quite a few students who are writers or poets who I think could benefit from like the faculty lounge. Whatever layout where we can just like have like a spoken word event during the reception, which would be really fun. And I think a lot of people are really interested in doing it. So it will be in January, most likely. We're still ironing out the date that the lounge is open, and then once we get that information, we'll let you guys know. But it'll be in January after break. People are refreshed, and hopefully they can work on something over the break if they want to. And they'll have something to show. I think that'll be really a unifying experience because like we're always meeting, we're always talking and like discussing things that are medical, and like exams and stuff and all this stuff, and it can get like really, you don't really get to see other sides of people in the school, and so unless you're like friends with them, and so this will show people like how like multifaceted our class really is, which is exciting.
That's really good. And we're going to be for sure featuring that in our upcoming issues of our newsletter. So just give us the date, but it's going to be in January. So keep your eyes open.
Keep your eyes open. And then do you want to talk about the health and humanities?
Oh yeah, so I'm also, it might be a little bit preemptive, but I am working with some of the health humanities programming to develop a health humanities track at UIC. It's a very long-term goal, but I have a lot of interest with a lot of medical students that also have a background in the arts, and some that don't, who just feel like it's a really important connection to build. And we're going to talk about what we want to see. If you guys have any ideas, we're very open to everything, but basically focusing on the existing infrastructure at UIC, because I know there's a monthly poetry workshop, and there are a lot of medical colloquia that the med students go to. And they're very interested in enhancing that part of our education specifically.
Right. It's interesting because there's been a lot of research showing, for example, I think at Yale it started, there's the derm instructor noticed that their students were not able to like describe a rash. They'd be like, oh, it's red and bumpy. But the professor wanted them to be like, okay, like it was approximately like, like was it ovular or like spherical or like it was raised this much and it was like condensed and like what kind of red is it and stuff like that. And so they decided to implement this art program or like this class where they would go to the British museum they have on campus, which is and they were supposed to go and like describe paintings, and they did research on it. They found like a marked increase of students being able to describe like medical symptoms or like images to like a more precise degree after taking that class. And so a lot of medical schools around the nation have implemented this as their teaching modality. And so I think it's like really topical.
Yeah, that would be so interesting to bring to UIC. I think language deficiency is a huge thing. Or like, not a deficit in being able to describe well.
Communication,
Right.
yeah. Even communicating to your patients,
Exactly.
being able to like, put yourself in their shoes, but then break down what you want to get across to them in a different way that breaks you out of the bubble that you're in the medical field.
Right.
like we had a whole thing that's like, okay, what is contraception? It's like, oh, what do patients call that? Because like when you get a printout, it's like all of the medical terms are in there, and they don't know what that means. Or like hypertension, what is that in layman's terms? And then I think having something that is like grounds you, like art, where you have to describe things in a sort of like rudimentary way. It sounds rudimentary, but it actually builds this like overall picture of what that thing looks like, and that can be really, really like valuable for patient care.
So would you say that art brings you closer to your patients then?
For me, I wrote my whole personal statement about how, or not my personal, like another essay that I sent to many colleges about how I thought that art would make me a better physician. And we don't have that much contact with art. I do think art, being like able to like really identify with art and be able to like take the time and look and listen and talk about art increases empathy. I have no sources to back that up, but it's just
There
like
are sources to back that up.
There are. Okay.
Yes.
But I like believe that on a deep level. And then also just like art making, how tactile it is. Medicine is really tactile. And like I was assisting on a C-section, and like I never had like I've never sutured before, and I sutured a patient. And I knew how to do it because I had knit for so many years and sewed for so many years. And so that was like a very like it's a very translatable skill, you know, and like any surgery or any like
So interesting.
Especially like reconstructive plastic surgery.
Yeah.
Creating something for a person that needs to be done in an artistic way. You can't just print an ear for someone because it will look printed.
Yeah.
Natural.
Exactly. Yeah, I remember watching it back in Boston. I was watching the surgery, and the doctor was like walking us through like how the skin to close. Like it was a lumpectomy after breast cancer. She was like, okay, like to close this, we're gonna take. We have to look at how the skin naturally falls, like step back and talk to the patient. And we wanted to do it artfully so that it looks like nothing has been taken out of the patient, like a natural thing. Because worrying about like the patient's psychological effect from surgery, like if they see like a dent in their breast, they're gonna go think about that. She's able to do it artfully and like really take so much time and care to do it. And this is something she's like in her 60s. She's been practicing for like decades. And people often lose that as they practice. They're like, oh, the resin will close or something. And to see her take such care and like really artfully do it. I don't know if she has an art background, but it definitely felt like, that empathy, that like meditation.
Even I think through art history, you can gain a sense of cultural competency that's really difficult to learn in a different external setting, because you're really putting yourself into the perspectives of a specific community and then reflecting on what they've been through and how they've coped and where they are now. So you're looking at the whole trajectory of how people change and think and act in a visual way too. So I feel like it's almost, it gets you at a deeper level because you can see it in so many different ways. So I think that's really important, especially when you're working with a diverse patient population, to really understand every aspect that you can.
Right. And just to add, like, I think art has a way of displaying or like communicating pain in a way that like no other medium can do. Like you can really feel someone's pain, and that kind of affects everything. But I think that's really important to like to be able, like, even whether it's physical or like psychological. So that's important to know.
I'm interested in psychiatry, and art is one of my connections to that because of the fact that you can't see a lot of mental health conditions, but when you give someone a visual or auditory outlet to express themselves, it will make it a lot easier for them to communicate exactly how they feel and what they're going through.
People don't know about us.
Yes. There are a lot of art therapy mechanisms. There's actually a great documentary on Netflix about a prison in Brazil that like a psychotherapist went into and helped all these prisoners create art, which not only validated the way they were feeling, but helped them express how much emotional pain they were in, and then serve as a fundraiser for this prison.
Oh
It
wow.
was a win-win-win. And then obviously health outcomes for all of those patients improved because there were so many things that were being attended to that were never thought about before.
What's it called?
What's it called?
Oh, no.
Look it up. I'll look it up. But it's great. And I'll add it to the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Throw it in there.
In the comments below.
Yes, it's in Portuguese, just full disclosure. That's why I don't know what it's called.
I love subtitles.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome.
And then there are studies on like clay art therapy, because it's just such a physical activity, so it's really beneficial for physical therapy for a lot of people, but also as just like a mental health coping mechanism. You're focusing on something, you're creating something tangible, and that validates what you're doing with your day.
Yeah, to add to that with clay, I have like a light meditation practice, and one of the things I do when I'm not even practicing with clay is when you put a piece of clay down, you have to center the mound of clay before you can create anything. And so like when you have the wheel, this is on the wheel. So when you have the wheel, it's good. The clay's gonna like go like this at first, and you have to like really press your hands, like press your body into it so that it doesn't move at all, even when the wheel is spinning. So in my mind, when I'm meditating, oftentimes I will like imagine myself as like a piece of clay that is not centered, and then like with breath work and focus, and sometimes like center myself as a piece of clay. So I take a lot of like metaphors from art into like my mental health practices, physical health, like regimens. Yeah, I told my therapist, I'm gonna use that. And I was like, just give me. I was like, give me someone to say like credit. It was like, what HIPAA? And I was like, okay.
I think it's really relatable because yesterday, a couple of my friends, we hosted like this mental health, like we call it a speaker series event. So this clinical psychologist came in and he was just giving us, or educating us in a sense about what mental health is and how people do struggle with that sometimes. And his main theme was mindfulness, which is exactly what you were talking about, how you thought about putting the clay onto the wheel, like every step or action that you did was something that was going through your head. Like, okay, now I need to press down on this. Now I'm going to become this piece of clay as I like sculpt it into whatever I'm going to be making. So I think the idea of art being like a mindful act in a sense where you're constantly thinking about whatever you're trying to create. I think that's something that's really good for stress relief.
Right, and like when I was working in cancer, like I would have days where I'd see like 10 patients who were just diagnosed and like had that emotional burden, and it would really affect me on a deep level. And I would go to pottery for like 4 hours afterwards, and like I wouldn't think about anything but that. And it was like the most it was a very mindful experience. I was just like looking at the clay and like not letting my mind scatter, which a lot of times is, I feel like even if you're in yoga or you're doing like meditation, it's easy to like scatter and think about all these other things, and finding a practice where like it's all encompassing is really was I'm very grateful for that.
This was incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
What is this called?
Well, we were thinking about calling it Coffee with the CoMArtists.
Oh,
Just like coming back.
That's
I
so
see you
cute.
guys every month, but
Cool. And we can get other people we know.
Yeah.
For sure. This is just really new for us
Yeah.
as well. So we're
It's
just trying to
episode
work out
1.
the kinks.
Alright, it's episode 1.
Episode 1.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for
Like
doing
and
this.
subscribe.
Yes.
Comments.
Comments below.
Everything. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
It is 1:45.